Pivoting your business, it's one of the most nail-biting, high-stakes moments any founder can face, right? It's a single decision that can lead to explosive growth or, well, catastrophic failure. But what if there was a way to manage all that chaos, a playbook to turn that massive risk into a calculated advantage? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
All right, so what's the game plan? We're literally going to walk through this playbook step by step. We'll start by understanding the high stakes, then we'll map out the risk landscape, figure out what to tackle first, build out a real mitigation playbook, and finally, talk about how to keep your eyes on everything as it unfolds. Ready? Let's dive in. So first things first, a pivot isn't just some minor course correction. It's this fundamental shift in your product, your market, or your entire business model. It's one of those moments of immense pressure where, honestly, the entire future of the company just hangs in the balance. So let's just get right to it. You and your team have decided to make a big change. You're excited, you're optimistic, but have you really stopped to ask this simple, maybe even terrifying question? What could actually go wrong here? Because let me tell you, the answer is a whole lot. And look, the dangers here are so real. I'm talking about your revenue suddenly falling off a cliff. The cost to get new customers for your new direction could spiral completely out of control. You might alienate your most loyal customers, confuse the heck out of the market, or even spark a civil war inside your own team. And these aren't just, hypotheticals. These are the classic pitfalls that can sink even the most promising pivots out there. So how do you possibly defend against all these threats? Well, you definitely don't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. You move from fear to foresight. So step 1 in the playbook? We're going to systematically map out every single potential threat. We're creating a complete picture of what's ahead. Okay, this right here is so important because it takes that giant, overwhelming cloud of risk and breaks it down into these manageable buckets. We're basically looking at 6 key areas: your money, your day-to-day operations, how the market might react, the culture of your team, your tech, and even any regulatory hurdles. And listen, a truly solid plan, it's keeping its eyes on all 6 of these. So let's zoom in on financial risk for a sec. It's kind of the most obvious one, right? This is the stuff that keeps founders staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. Will our revenue drop? Will we run out of cash before this pivot pays off? Do we have a massive funding gap? These are truly existential questions. But then you got this other risk. It's a little more subtle, but trust me, it's just as deadly. Market acceptance. Think about it. You can execute the pivot perfectly on paper, build this flawless new product. But if your customers just kind of shrug their shoulders and don't buy in, it was all for nothing. At the end of the day, the market always gets the final vote. All right, so now you've got this huge, long list of potential disasters across all those categories. And yeah, that can feel pretty paralyzing. So the next step, and this is absolutely critical, is to separate the truly terrifying threats from the, minor annoyances. It's all about prioritization. And you know what? The way you do this is actually pretty simple. For every single risk, you just assess it on 2 scales. Impact, how badly will this hurt us if it happens? And likelihood, how probable is it that this will actually happen? If something has a high impact and it's very likely to happen, boom, that's your top priority. Something that's low on both fronts? Well, you just keep an eye on it for now. Easy. Let's make this super, super clear. A major funding gap, that's an existential threat, period. The action is immediate. You solve this or the company dies. But on the other hand, some minor brand confusion, the impact is really just an annoyance. The action, just monitor it. See? This is how you focus your precious time and resources on what's actually going to move the needle. Okay, so now that we know what to actually worry about, we can stop analyzing and start acting. This is the part of the playbook where we design our countermoves. We're not just identifying problems anymore, we're actively building the solutions before the problems even have a chance to show up. And look, the process for this has to be rock solid. For every single high-priority risk, you just follow these 4 steps. 1, name the risk. 2, estimate the potential damage. 3, design your countermove. And step 4, and I'm telling you, this is non-negotiable. You have to assign an owner. Why? Because a risk without an owner is just a problem waiting to blow up. Now, your playbook needs 2 different kinds of moves. Think of it like driving a car. Preventative measures, those are your seatbelts. They're what you do before anything happens to make a crash less likely, like extensive market testing. But contingency plans, those are your airbags. They're your backup for what to do the moment a risk actually becomes a reality. And you absolutely 100% need both. A brilliant plan that's just collecting dust in a Google Drive folder is completely useless, right? That's why you need a live dashboard. Think of it as the central nervous system for your pivot, tracking your key metrics and warning you of danger in real time. So let's see how this actually works. Let's imagine one of your key metrics, your KPIs, is customer retention. You simply can't afford to lose your existing base during this pivot. So you set a really clear, hard line in the sand. Retention must stay above 95%. So you're watching your dashboard every single day. And then you see it. Your retention number has slipped. It's not at 95% anymore. It's dipped to 88%. Okay, that's a warning sign. And because that number just crossed a predefined threshold that you already set in your plan, bam, the alarm bells start ringing. A risk trigger has been activated. Now, this isn't time to panic. It's time for a planned, immediate response. And that trigger? It doesn't just kick off some internal scramble. It sets your entire communication plan in motion. You can see exactly how it breaks down. Investors get their monthly update on risk status. Internal teams get progress reports every week in the all-hands meeting. Customers get messages as needed. The whole point is that everyone who needs to know knows. No surprises. Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've gone from the total chaos of a pivot to a really structured, manageable process. We've identified, prioritized, and planned for our risks. So let's boil all of this down into your final winning play. All right, here is your priority action summary. This is what you need to do. First, identify your top 3 risks and put a laser focus on them. Nothing else matters as much. Second, get those immediate short-term actions in place to neutralize those threats. Third, start thinking long-term. Develop those preventative measures that build resilience over time. And finally, and this is huge, make sure every single risk and action item has a specific person's name next to it. Accountability is absolutely everything. When you boil it all down, this entire playbook, all the charts and processes, it really comes down to this one powerful question. This is the question you and your team need to be asking constantly. What are the most critical risks in this pivot, and how can we strategically mitigate them? Because answering that question honestly and decisively, day in and day out, that is what separates a truly legendary pivot from just another sad cautionary tale.